It was unfair to other students in her class, and she had a talk with herself. And she said, I don't think it's going to harm my future chances in life, but for the sake of the kids who are younger than me, I'm going to put my name on this lawsuit. And she did it. So what happened during these last 6 years to Abigail Fisher? Nothing. She occasionally, she went to LSU and majored in finance. She joined the LSU bowling team. She joined a couple of other clubs. Her life as an undergraduate at LSU was garden variety, all through the litigation. Every now and then, a reporter would try to contact her, generally through her Facebook page. When her case was taken by the Supreme Court, the reporters really tried to contact her through her Facebook page, and she would always email them back and say, call Will or call Edward. She made arguments. She was a very high-profile young woman for a few months. She graduated from LSU, moved to Austin, and got a job within 2 weeks at a Fortune 500 company in a very senior position. All of her bosses know what she did. She never really talks about it. She doesn't brag about it. She doesn't. It's not her life. Her life is her job and her career and being now a 24-year-old young woman. So what could happen? Well, like Will said, we're going to ask the courts to seal these documents. And I'm highly confident they will. But just think if they don't. What's going to happen to this lawsuit if everybody who, and now we're up to 10, 12 kids who have said, you can let the courts know my name. What happens if they all just become so frightened that they tell us to withdraw their names from the lawsuit? Then this kind of discrimination that happens at Lowell, that happens at Stuyvesant, that happens at Thomas Jefferson, that happens at hundreds of public and private high schools around the country will continue. Asians will continue to be discriminated against for a long time until young men and young women will stand up and say, I will find the courage to stop this. And
yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we're going to fight hard to have these names protected. If they need to be given over only to the lawyers, as Edward said, there's always a chance the court says no. I think that's highly unlikely because we're asking for lots of information about current Harvard students and how they got into the school. And so they don't want those names getting out. So everybody's interest here is on the same side on this issue. But Edward made the fundamental point, which is, Edward and I can't stand up for you, but we can stand up with you. And so, we do need people to step forward and take a brave step. And 10 or 12 have, and I'm sure 10 or 12 more will. And I don't think there will be retaliation. I really don't. Now, we certainly want to protect the ones who are in the application process. But beyond that, I really don't think it will. I think those people will find that it was something they will remember for the rest of their lives that they did, and that they can be proud of, and they will go on to do great things.
I have one comment. I want to share is that I also received many news reports. I want to talk with the victims, potential victims. What I did was trying to say, okay, if you can keep a little confidentiality, say it's Michael from Los Angeles, or like Linda from Houston. So if anybody here knew, like one kid's been discriminated, or under tremendous pressure because this kind of racial quotas, so also contact me, and then I will be happy to pass information to the news reporter. The news reporter looking for this kind of case to publicize this, publicize what we have been solved. Okay, we need support.
All right,
So I have a question from a counter-argument perspective. What kind of data, what kind of students, what kind of organizations do you expect that Harvard and University of Carolina will be pulling out? And can present those information in front of the judge at this point, and how much visibility do you have into their actions?
So we're going to have a lot of visibility into their actions through the discovery process. They have to turn over any information they want to give to the judge, to us first, so we can review and analyze it. It will be interesting to see what kind of arguments they make. I have to confess that most times, it's really much talking in a circle, right? We say, why do you want to use race? And they say, we want to be diverse. And we say, well, what do you mean by diverse? And they say, well, when we have enough race. And we say, well, okay, but when will you have enough race? And they say, when we're diverse. You cannot get them to give a straight answer on this. We have tried. We have been trying for many years. What they mean is when we fulfilled our quota and our student body looked in a picture like we wanted to. And of course, they can't say that because that would be against the rules. So what they try to do is say, oh, you overemphasize the academic qualifications. We don't really care about that much. And then you say, but you care very much about your ranking in U.S. News and World Report, right? They say, well, yes. And they say, but doesn't that really matter about your academic qualifications? They say, well, yes. Then what's the problem? They say, well, we need more leadership. Right? I don't know what the honest answer to your question is. So far, in most courts, they get away with stuff like that. I hope they don't this time. I hope the Supreme Court has had enough of it. What we're hoping to show here is what's going on behind the curtain. And no one's really been behind the curtain before. And we're now going behind it. We're going to see what's going on. And I don't think they're going to have good answers, but we'll see. A lot of questions.
I like what we plan to do here. But my question is, unlike the Abigail Fisher case, which is one individual against the university, here if we want to prove the case, which is Harvard has systematically discriminated Asian American applicants, don't we need to ask the court to review all the applications for a certain year? I don't even know how many applications Harvard received, say for year 2014, and ask the court to review all that data. Is that practical?
So, great question. The answer is yes, kind of. So, they get about 40,000 applications a year. We have asked for, initially we asked for every application for a 4-year period. However, we are in negotiations with Harvard over this. I can't be too specific because of rules about lawyers revealing what's going on. But I'll leave it to say, we need enough so that our experts can perform the kind of analysis they want to, which means we need a statistically significant sample of applications. How many that is, I can't really say, because Harvard probably doesn't. Yeah, so the answer is we don't need every application, but we do need enough so that we can recreate their process and see if their justifications hold up to their own evidence. So we will be doing a lot of work in this area.
I have just another question, more to the experts on, I guess, the admissions process. There is a news article from BuzzFeed News titled "College Admissions Advisors Work to Make Asian Kids Less Asian." What do you think about that, and do you think they should be doing that, they shouldn't be doing that? Do you think that that's benefiting them? Do you think that that's benefiting them?
I think it's absolutely horrifying and entirely rational right now. It's horrifying and rational. If you are a parent and you want your son or daughter to get into Harvard, it makes absolute sense right now to make them seem like Asian. People are changing their last names, hiding their ethnicity. It is gross and disgusting, and I entirely understand why they're doing it. And the goal of these cases is to make sure they never have to do it again.
It's such an indignity, but you're right. Recently, a South Indian kid who was rejected from lots of schools made one change in his application. That is, he checked the race as black. This is South Indian, right? This is Indian, that is. And he checked the race black, and it was admitted. So this is, and he went public and told his story. This is so degrading. We should never subject our kid to this type of cheating, but like Will said, that actually is something that would be wise for children to do.
I want to add one comment here. Basically, in terms of diversity, like the spirit of diversity is understand the cultural difference. It's not say racial balance. However, I really, they try to use, they don't want to make efforts understand the, the characteristic of Asian Americans, right? They put it into a minoritic block. So force us to say, to change identities is not right. They should, Eden Chow, who is the former Labor Secretary, right? She recently made a statement to the World Journal, the Chinese newspaper says, like all culture, we respect the senior, we don't interrupt their conversation. But unfortunately, that has been misunderstood as a character, say you're not really social, or you're too quiet, or you're not creative. That's wrong. They need to understand our culture. So that is what they need to do, instead of we do things wrong.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question about the data. Are you able to get those data, for example, the Harvard, every year, how many applicants apply to Harvard? What are their GPAs, SATs, what their ratio, and probably their income level, and also the data, how many admitted, what their ratio, and what their GPAs, SATs, and ideally also, what's their graduation rates? Like for law school, how many pass the bar can finish? If you get those data, I think are very, helpful. And that the data itself can tell the truth.
So the answer is, we ask for all of that information. We're likely to get most of that information, and we do think it will tell you.
Okay, so they, if the court asks, they are obligated to give to provide it.
Yes, with a big, they'll fight, they'll try to say we're asking for too much, but at the end of the day, the simple answer to your question is yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. And the other thing is, Dr. Blum said we can, there are 3 ways can help. Yeah, of course, I hope everybody, no matter how much you can donate financially, anything. And is there any other way we can help, like do some things, Dr. Zhao just said if I have some notes case, we can email you. And it would be great to give the contact information, see, or if you can contribute your time or work, anything would be helpful. And also, I'm asking, see, in this country, and your vote always can, is very powerful. Is there any way we can, from this perspective, do things like last year at CA5s? See, before, we Chinese, we get used to, we are humble, we just take care of ourselves. I'm glad this happened today. Before you say, okay, like Harvard, you raise your bar, we study harder, we achieve more. That's not just right. Of course, everybody has to work to their full potential. However, we, come to this country, we want the equal right. It's not just so we Chinese people now, we have the awareness which is great. We cannot just, you raise the bar, we just work harder. That's not right, right? So, and also maybe there is a way from the, vote, we have, those are powerful things. Maybe from this aspect, what we can do to make the court or whatever politician or what can, hear our voice.
Maybe I address one question about the vote. We are thinking about if, the Department of Justice, Department of Education, if they don't take action change, we'll do an individual petition, but if say by the presidential election, then we know a good, clear way to go. We'll try to escalate into a presidential election issue. Who support us? Who against us? We're trying to like let the particularly like Asian American countries to states or like swing states like Florida. We can try to put it as a election issue. So we're trying to mobilize the vote or as much as possible. That is the first part of the question. Probably the first more.
Well, it's a little, first of all, I'd like to deputize everyone in this room to be sort of a fellow discrimination investigator. Do not hesitate, and this is how these cases are born. Do not hesitate through the websites that I've given you, and it has my email on it. If you see discrimination, not just in higher education or K through 12, if you see it in contracting, if you see it in employment, if you see a memo from your employer that says something along the effects that we're going to be making a presentation to a new client and we need fewer Asians on our marketing committee and we need more of some other race on our marketing committee, or if you're told we're dropping you from this employment track because we have concerns that one of our clients doesn't want so many Asians on a particular project, you need to tell us about that. So you're all officially deputized as investigators to keep us informed. The second thing is, and we're a little ahead of ourselves, but at some point I anticipate arguments that will be made at the court in Boston. And I think it's important that the Asian American community in this country go to Boston, hold a rally the day of that argument, and make sure that that courtroom is filled with Asian faces. This is what the civil rights movement has done for the last 50 years. It's the right thing to do. When you're African American fighting for your rights, you want the courts and you want America to know that you stand with those litigants. So coming and participating in person, I think is an important element in all this.
So my question is, if this lawsuit against Harvard ever goes up to the Supreme Court, and it probably will, how do you expect to overcome the disadvantage that 6 out of the 9 Supreme Court justices are either went to Harvard for undergrad or for Harvard Law School?
Great question. So, it turns out, I feel like Justice Scalia will be on our side. He went there.
Excuse me, can you repeat the question? We barely can hear.
Oh, the question was, how do you expect to win in the Supreme Court if 6 of the 9 justices went to Harvard? Great question. I won't get too much into the details, but there are several justices on the Supreme Court have said they are already opposed to the use of race. A couple of them actually went to Harvard. So we're okay on a couple. Justice Kennedy, we're working on it. So I don't think, it's a concern, but I don't think that will be the tip the scales one way or the other. I think their perspective will be what decides it for them, and we're hoping to change the perspective. That's the goal.
My question is directed towards Ed and Will. Previously, we talked about how the Supreme Court decided that race-based admissions were okay as long as they were using a light touch. I was wondering if you could go more into depth about that to help me understand the previous Supreme Court rulings.
So, it's a great question. The court has never really defined, well, what it says, what the court has said is, you can use race as one small factor, what the wording was non-predominant factor, in the admission of students. They would never tell you what the students. every time they ask the schools say, don't worry, we're not using it. We're using it as a non-predominant factor. So I know you're waiting for like a really good answer to this, and there is none. The Supreme Court has said you're allowed to use race until you reach a critical mass of minority students. Of course, when the schools define minority, they exclude Asians from the category. So they don't even mean that. So look, every time someone asks, the schools say, don't look at our information. So I honestly don't, I've never known. If you were interested in this and you wanted to like see how this conversation goes, if you go on the Supreme Court's website, you can pull the audio transcript from the Fisher versus Texas oral argument, or read the transcript. There is an exchange between the Chief Justice and Texas's lawyer on this very topic, and they both left frustrated. So I wish there was a good answer, but it's very pleasant. And that's ultimately the problem, right? When you leave that much discretion, and you say, don't look by, trust us, we're not using it too much, and when we say, prove it, they say, whoa, don't bother us, please. Like, we're a school, trust us. You'll never get kind of appropriate confirmation of that we'd like.
Thank you.
I realize that this is a case about Asian American, but today we are all Chinese here. There are also Filipino, Indonesian, Korean, and also Indian. I wonder, actually, Professor Hu gave an example of, the Indian mark as black, and I talked to my neighbors, to my colleagues. They said, we typically we do not really care, we mark as white. So they get the advantage of being admitted, but do we have a statistic of, like, for example, Indian national in real representation in Harvard, and is it really a concern for them? And do you guys actually part also engage them, engage the other community, Filipino, Indonesia, Indian, in this case?
I have not seen statistics breaking down the admission statistics into the subgroups. So I really don't have input on that. I'm actually interested in hearing what Will and Anthony have to add to that. Our impression is that these other Asian groups do stand with us on this side. This is the impression, and I know among the 64 organizations that complain to the Department of Education, there are many non-Chinese Asian organizations, but I don't know the statistics.
I can tell you that of the 10 to 12 kids who have joined the organization and have agreed to have their name revealed to the court if necessary, we do have a Korean, and we do have, I think, 2 South Asians. So this is now, we have 3 sort of subgroups within the Asian community as plaintiffs.
First of all, thank you very much for all of our guests coming out far to share with us the knowledge, experience, and spirit in fighting for a fair admission for our kids, for our generation. But regarding the fair admission, I think SCA 5 is a typical example. It's from other ethnic group, like the Hispanic group. They also fight very hard to get so-called fair admissions. So, according to Professor Hu and also a number of research, we know that race-free admission policy actually is good, not just for Asian Americans, and also good for the university, for the other ethnic groups, as well as, of course, for the country. But how can we, on the one hand, we fight fiercely for the fair admission, race-free admission policy. On the other hand, how can we do some job to help other people, other ethnic groups, especially such as Hispanic group, African American groups, to understand race-free admission policy is not just for our selfish purpose. It's for the whole, society. That's my question. Thank you.
Looks like this is like a president question.
Yeah, I think, when we drafted the complaint, we emphasized a few things. One is this is not only civil rights issue for Asian Americans, also for the future of America, which this country built upon equal opportunity, merit-based. That's number one. Number two, we say, we need to address the education attainment issue in disadvantaged communities. So from our complaints, we support economic-based preference with majority merit-based, but some slot or some areas should be economic-based to really take care of the poor kids. And also we give many examples about Houston Chinese lines. Each year they team up to select 1 or 2 poor schools to donate money to buy all the school supply for 1 year. Last year they helped 1,720 poor students. Like myself, I organized this event, campaign. However, before that, in 2013, I published a book, Share the Chinese American Parenting Education Experience. I published many columns to share our education, proven education experience. I think the right thing to do is really address K-12 education for the disadvantaged communities, bring up their capabilities, and bring up their qualifications. We'd love to see a racially harmonized society. We really want to help them. Otherwise, as Asian Americans, we'll probably someday suffer crime issues because of poverty leads to crime. Someday we end up with pay high income tax if we don't address that kind of poverty issue. So we're compassionate about that, but the issue is not to say distort the college admission. It's more address the cost of the poor education attainment in some disadvantaged communities. Thank you.
Okay. I have one question for Will and one question for Ed. Sorry, taking two. So what do you think will be the hook for you to bring one of the cases into the Supreme Court? The court grants about 1% about the case of the third. So you filed both Harvard and the UNC. Was there an intention to put it a circuit split? I mean, both cases are filed under the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, not the Equal Protection Clause. So is there any plan? I mean, it's very hard to get cert.
Yep, so I'll take this one. So we did choose 2 different circuits to help create some division. That's one part of it. We did sue Harvard, as we talked about before, because they're Harvard, and it has a marquee effect. And because of their role in instituting the Harvard Plan and their history in this area. North Carolina claims to be the oldest public university in the country. We did, just to correct one thing, we did sue North Carolina under the Equal Protection Clause. Also Title VI. The private school you can only sue under Title VI. But we did sue North Carolina under the Equal Protection Clause. We've made different arguments so the cases are complementary. And so we feel like we've set it up well, but you're right. I learned clerking there, and after, you cannot make the Supreme Court do something they don't want to do. And you can't stop them from doing something they do want. You don't know. You don't know. You don't go into this knowing up front how it's going to turn out. But you put one foot in front of the other, and you hope at the end that it works out the way it has for us in other cases.
Okay, great. So that question is for Ed. So the other day we had some WeChat group discussion about all these racial data collection. When I applied for graduate school about 20 years ago, on that application form, I was required, suggested to fill in my racial information. I was in China, had no idea what that was about. So it seems that there are politically correct answer for the purpose of using that data is just to get some statistics.